We've come down to Cannes in the south of France to test a boat that we first saw at the Düsseldorf boat show. It's this, the Beneteau Antares 9 Series 2, slightly fatter, slightly more voluminous than its predecessor. Some subtle tweaks that are designed to make it even better value. And on the face of it, at just 134,500 euros plus tax, value is a major part of this package. Now this is a really quite fulsome boat, as you can see. Quite a big fat hull shape. Beam comes a good way forward. No fine entry there. A raised island sunbed up there on the bow to maximise volume again, and steps up to that foredeck again to generate volume down below. But we'll start at the back end here, where there's a couple of changes over the predecessor, the old Antares 9, one of which is this. That comes as standard, an opening side gate for a bit of extra practicality, and this roof is also extended significantly aft over the predecessor. It comes just above that aft bench, generates extra shelter, and it's quite versatile too. You can have a soft sunroof built into that, and if you have it like this, if I step up onto the gunnel there and point the camera over, there's plenty of space for solar panels should you want them. But let's head round to the very back end and take a look at the engines, because the engine options here are quite simple. You either get a pair of 200s or a pair of 250s. That's the maximum for speeds they tell me approaching 40 knots. What we have here is a pair of Mercury 200s, but believe it or not, if you spec this boat with Suzuki 200s, you'll save yourself about 12,000 euros, so that's a bit of a tempter as well. And stepping on at this starboard platform, there's a good rail here, a little gate to access the cockpit, and you'll see when you look down at the deck we've got runners here, which means that this aft bench can slide fore and aft, and that enables it to make really good use of the space. It comes right back towards the leading edge of those cowlings, and when you've finished for the day you can just slide it forward, trim those legs right out of the water, no problem at all. And there's a shore power on the port side. That makes plenty of sense, of course, because this is our point of access. And if we come in here, well, there's plenty of storage on offer, plenty of storage beneath that aft bench, some open storage there for fenders or lines, wet stuff generally, more inside this little pod here. And beneath the deck here we have an enormous space, really cavernous, in the absence of inboard engines of course. It goes right down into the bottom, the V of the hull, and you can store all sorts of gear in there, including the infills that turns this into a sunbed. Now let's head up a step and forward along this starboard side deck. This is the wider of the two. Plenty of space here, nice raised mouldings, additional rails on top of that. No rail on top of the roof, but you don't really need it because the roof doesn't get in your way, it doesn't project out. All this space is yours to use. Skipper's side door. Up a couple more steps to the foredeck, and there's that raised island sunbed we talked about. These can be used as elevating backrests, so you can sit yourself up and face forward. And certainly the boat at the Düsseldorf show also had an additional cushion that sort of leaned up against this one-piece screen, so you could elongate the sunbed, just adopt a more relaxed position as you face forward. Good walkways round the bow, a decent chain locker for your anchor, room for that but little else, plenty of grippy tread machined into this deck, and it's a slightly wet day here in Cannes, so it's quite useful. Plenty of traction, and even though these side decks on the port side are relatively narrow, there's a good tow rail, good rails outboard as well, these elevated stainless steel rails. Again, no rails on the rooftop, but you don't need that. A sunroof, optional, built into that roof. And as we head aft, well, I pointed this out at the Düsseldorf boat show, we really could do with a rail back here and a bit of tread plate here, just to plant your foot, make your way down into the cockpit should you be forced to use that port side deck. But let's spin around and head straight into the saloon, because this pretty much follows the template laid down by the original Antares 9, and it works very well. So what we have is a 4-person dinette on the port side, again slightly raised because they need to generate that volume down below. That also works well in terms of visibility. We've got nice deep plunging windows, relatively narrow mullions, so you get great views from a sitting position, particularly if you whip this curtain out of the way. And at the leading edge here, this forward bench, that of course can be reversed, and as you do so you'll see that the seat actually elevates and reaches the same level as the helm seat, generating 2 co-pilot seats facing forward with a rail, with a window. So 3 facing forward there, another 2 facing forward here, all within the shelter of this pilot house, and that's pretty good use of space for my money. We've got the battery isolation switches underneath that section. If you opt for air conditioning, that unit also goes beneath this aft bench. And the galley is subtly uprated too, covered in my rubbish today, I'm afraid, and some branded gear. But what we have here is a couple of gas hobs, and this is new on this boat. This is an 80-litre fridge. Very handy indeed. The reason there's a tissue in the corner of that is because this door keeps opening when it's out at sea. This is a press strip, so it's been in and out all day. We also have a decent size of sink here and a set of cup holders. Some more storage. There's a bin down there. More storage beneath the helm seat, and actually this is quite good. There's a good bit of distance, a good bit of travel for that helm seat to go fore and aft. But what we'll do is head straight forward and down the steps to investigate what this beamy hull provides you with in terms of accommodation. And of course the owner's cabin is up here in the V of the bow, I should say the U of the bow, because as I say, it's quite a soft, bulky front end. That's a queen size bed with decent access around the side, at least on the port side. On the starboard side we've got an angled bulkhead because this is the place where you'll find the day heads. If I lift that up, excellent storage under there, really cavernous. Good strong rams too, it actually holds it up under its own weight. Plenty of vertical elevation at the head end of the bed, and because it doesn't taper that much, you can actually use that as the head end of the bed without bumping shoulders with your partner. Additional shelving on both sides, high level storage and good windows. Hanging storage as well, as you can see. And if I rotate myself and head aft, here is the day heads. I think it's a really decent footprint. Here's the cushion I talked about actually that goes up against the screen on the foredeck, so they did spec that option with this boat. What we have here is a good size of cabinet there with the sink on top, good size of sink too, good size of window, the toilet on the angle against that leading bulkhead to make best use of space, and this of course is a wet room, so that is your shower fitting, and there is your deck drain. And up here with a little mirror just to help bounce the light around, we've got a hatch that opens up to reveal all the wiring on the back side of the dash. Good access that, and a better fitting than you tend to see on most boats where it's either screwed or velcroed shut, but I'd like to see rubber gaskets just to prevent any moisture or condensation getting in there. Spinning around to the port side now, this door takes you round into the second cabin. Now it's full of stuff from this particular press strip, try to keep it out of sight, but I'm afraid we've stumbled upon it. Lots of cushions and boxes and bags and stuff, but this basically is a double bed, I reckon of equal size to the one forward. The deck head does dip significantly beneath that port dinette, but there's certainly a decent bit of elevation at the head end where you'll find the reading lights. Good size of window again, a little changing seat here, power points and more hanging storage. And it's quite useful that Beneteau thought to put a little skylight on the dash top above, so all the light from that screen above us cascades down into here, keeps it much brighter than you might anticipate. I reckon that's an impressive use of space on a relatively compact 30-footer, but the big question of course is, how does such a beamy, voluminous boat with a relatively short waterline length fare when you get it out on the water? Well, of course we couldn't answer that question alongside in Dusseldorf, but we absolutely can now. So let's head out immediately and see exactly how she performs. Well, we got some chunky little swells rolling in now, as you tend to get in the afternoon after the sun's warmed up the land in this part of the world. So it's going to be a good old challenge for a boat of this sort of shape, 30 foot long, 10 foot in the beam. The hull is in fact 3 centimetres wider than its predecessor, the old Antares 9, just to generate extra volume inside the boat. And we've seen the benefits of that when you transfer that out onto the water into some chop. There's potential for that to go a bit wrong, but we'll see how she performs in a second. First of all, we want to just have a little look at the helm station, because it's quite interesting. Now, as you can see, it's relatively narrow, barely any wider than me, in fact. And the reason for that is that we've got a 2-man co-pilot seat on the port side, plus you need access down into the cabins. So you've got a footprint that you've got to play with, and I reckon, for the most part, Beneteau's done pretty well. We've got a wheel here to the left, slightly offset. We've got the twin throttles on the right hand side, some manual switchgear and a 9-inch plotter. You can upgrade that to a 12-inch plotter if you like, there is room for that. The engine display, and then we've got our tabs just on this top tier of the dash. The tabs, for me, they're a little bit far from the throttles. I'd like them closer to me so that I can operate them without having to reach and take my eyes off the water. And also the bow thruster, that's on the left hand. Again, I'd like that on the right hand side. But of course, if you investigate the options list and spend a little bit of money, then this is where the joystick will go. And that makes great sense, particularly given that, if I could get out, we got this nice broad skipper's side door here. You want to be able to helm essentially as you're coming alongside from this position, so that's pretty comfortable. Now, the engines we've got here today are a pair of Mercury 200s. Now you can go up to 250s, a pair of 250s on this boat for speeds approaching apparently 40 knots, but with these twin 200s they're promising around about 34, 35 knots. And as I say, it's quite a short, chubby, voluminous sort of boat, so it's not necessarily the sort of platform when you want lots and lots of power. We'll get her up on the plane now, just lifting those legs a touch, running along the seas are rolling through on our port beam here. And there's some decent responsiveness from that trim. When I lift those legs, the waterline does disappear after a little bit, raises that bow, so we're not taking too much of an impact on that fat forward hull quarter. We'll just have a little play with those tabs. As you can see, I am having to reach forward a little bit. As I say, I'd like those shifted back a touch, but again, responsiveness to that is very good indeed. So we're running nice and flat now. We can put on a little bit more pace maybe, just negotiate these swells a little bit. And as I say, they're getting up to sort of 2-3 foot. They're quite incessant, quite aggressive. And we're doing 27 knots here across the seas. I can easily get that up to around about 30, which is very good for a boat of this kind in seas of this nature. If we push on a little bit more, there we are, we find ourselves just nipping over the 30 knot mark, up to 33, 34 knots. But as we do so, our efficiency is just tailing off a little bit, so what we'll do is ease her back a touch. What we're noticing here is that everything between 20 and 30 knots, and everything between 20 and 30 knots, we're seeing a fuel flow of about 3 litres per nautical mile. Now we've got 600 litre tank here, or 2 300 litre tanks I should say, so saving 20% redundancy, we're working with 480 litres, so at 3 litres per nautical mile. We've got a range of 160 miles. Now given that this boat tops out at 34 knots, that's a really, really generous cruising band. 20 to 30 knots, very useful indeed. And as you can see, you've really got quite aggressive speed. The fact that we don't have to come off the plane, we can stay above 20 knots, means that we can keep that efficiency up, keep making good distance, make good use of our fuel and stay nice and comfortable. We'll just trim her in a touch and ease round into this head seat. Just see how much weight we've got to take off. You hear the impacts just building a touch. I might just lift the nose a touch actually, even though it's a head seat, just so we don't take the brunt of that water directly on our big chunky bow, and that's a little bit better. Look at that, we're doing 24 knots into this head seat, and it is comfortable. And we'll spin her around again and we'll have a little look at her performance in the following set. Again, still doing 22 knots to turn across these seas. Here we go, a little bit more trim again. Just sort out our nose. Taking a bit of water over the top there, but that's my fault for not concentrating. Let's just activate the wipers, that's better. And now that is good. That lovely broad hull sits really steady in this following sea. Look at that, I can take my hands off wheel and throttle. We're doing 23 knots. Just easing over the swells. Really steady. No steering by the bow at all. It's very reassuring indeed. There's plenty of enjoyable heel in the turn as well. And yeah, because it's got a very fulsome hull, because it's loads of volume for the accommodation, those two cabins down below, and very little bow flare forward. Well, of course, it does have the potential to be a bit wet and a bit firm. But that's realistically the fault of the driver rather than the boat. If you drive into conditions, as I say, even though it's a bit snotty out here, we make good progress, get good distance from the available fuel, and stay really comfortable. So given how much it offers down below, I'd say that's a really, really impressive performance. Well, there we are. That was really good fun. Yeah, there was a bit of clattering from doors opening and slamming when we were underway, so a bit of work on the catches would help. And as I say, a couple of those elements that the helm could do with relocating just to make it more ergonomically intuitive. But as I pointed out at the Dusseldorf Boat Show, this is a boat that does a tremendous amount for relatively little money. And it turns out that when you take it out on the water, there's virtually no critical compromise to be made in terms of the way it handles, as long as you drive it the way it deserves to be driven. Now, it's quite possible that you disagree with everything I've just said. If so, please do leave your comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you've enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos along these lines in the future, then make sure you subscribe to the Motorboat and Yachting channel.